Christian, and Mary Magdalene is one of the most celebrated disciples of Christ. She appears in John 20 in the Bible because she was the first person to see Jesus after.
I'm a Christian, devout, and Mary Magdalene to me was probably one of the most important women in the Bible. Most people don't know that. She was the second cousin of Mary, the original Mary. But nobody gave Mary Magdalene the credit that she deserved. You see, she was the one that took all the blame for Mary's whoring around. You see, Mary was the actual whore, and Mary Magdalene was the one that just, she was a scapegoat, you could say. And, well, she was known all around Nazareth and the Nubian region down there. And she was friends with Jesus, I know that. Her and Jesus were like that. She, what did she do? She washed his feet, right? She washed his feet. A whore wouldn't do that. She washed his feet and his hair with her spit. I remember. She rubbed, Jesus spit in a bowl, and he put dirt in it, and he rubbed it around for her, and she went through his hair in it, and she gave him highlights. She gave him highlights, and Jesus blessed her for the highlights, and that's how Christmas came about.
I'm a Christian, non-denominational, and Mary Magdalene was the first person who saw Jesus after he arose.
I don't really identify with any religions per se, but when I think of Mary Magdalene, I don't really know that much about her, but the main thing that comes to mind is like the conspiracy theories portrayed in the Da Vinci Code about how maybe she held one of Christ's sons, or the Holy Grail could be the bloodline between her and Jesus.
Alright, so I'm a Christian, Baptist denomination, born and raised in the church. Educated in all private institutions all my life, Christian denominations. And to me, Mary Magdalene was, I believe, related to Mary, Jesus' mother, was a sister to Martha, and I believe the sister to Lazarus, who Jesus raised from the dead. There's a consensus that Mary Magdalene was a promiscuous, was promiscuous, but from what I've gathered, there's no one in the Bible that explicitly says that, and that tale is, I think nuns around the medieval times made that up because they couldn't believe that a woman could be that close to a man, especially Jesus. We can also learn a lot of stuff from Mary Magdalene because in the story, she actually paid attention to Jesus and was concerned with what Jesus was teaching, whereas her sister Martha was too busy with worldly things and making sure everything was in order, and Jesus actually rebuked Martha for doing that, whereas Mary listened to Jesus, worshiped Jesus, washed his feet, washed his hair with oils, and so yeah, that's it.
I'm a Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I think Mary Magdalene was a prostitute who eventually found Jesus, and through his guidance turned her into a model citizen. I don't know too much more than that, but that's basically my knowledge of Mary Magdalene.
I was raised Hindu, and I'm currently agnostic. And as far as I know about Mary Magdalene, I believe she was a prostitute and had some sort of connection with Jesus, and I don't really know anything more than that.
I'm agnostic. From what I understand, Mary Magdalene was one of the women who followed Jesus, and her name was mistakenly attributed to an unnamed prostitute in the Bible who also was affiliated with Jesus at one point, but they were not the same woman.
I'm a Catholic, and Mary Magdalene was an influential woman in the Bible who was very close to Jesus.
I'm a Catholic, and Mary Magdalene to me was one of the most celebrated disciples of Jesus because she was one of the first people to see him rise from the dead.
I'm agnostic, and I'm not really sure who Mary Magdalene is.
I'm a Catholic, and Mary Magdalene was referred to in church this past Sunday after she went to the tomb of Jesus and she realized that he had been resurrected. And I also, from history, I'm pretty sure she was considered a slut.
I'm Catholic, and Mary Magdalene first saw Jesus resurrect and was one of his first disciples.
My name is Father Rick Curry. I'm a Jesuit. I'm a Roman Catholic. I've been a Roman Catholic since birth. And the question is, who do I think Mary Magdalene? Well, let me tell you about this. I've changed my mind. I used to think that she was a sinner, a severe, severe sinner, probably a prostitute. And that when Jesus came upon this woman of the street, and she had a great conversion, and he turned her love for men into her love for him, and then she became one of the greatest sinners to become one of the greatest lovers of Christ. Well, I think that was bad theology. I mean, that just came up from some tradition that was never really verified very much, but as I began to study theology and became more and more familiar with Mary Magdalene, I realized a couple of things. Number one, and she certainly was not the street trollop that she was presented to be in my early bad theology. Number two, she was an amazingly close friend of Jesus. She was perhaps Jesus' closest friend. I think we know that not only by the exchanges that they had during their lives, but the very fact that when he resurrected from the dead, she was one that he appeared to, which really made her number one in his book. I also believe that Mary Magdalene was the first disciple. It's curious because there's this woman who represents so much personal relationship with Jesus, and she understood his mission more than anyone else, and she understood the kingdom of God as he was creating it, probably more than anyone else. And she probably was more influential with the apostles and the disciples than anyone else. And as a result, I really believe she was one of the first disciples. Not only was she one of the first disciples, but I think history has proven that the women got it. The women got it faster than the men got it, that Jesus was God. Jesus was the Son of God. And that was going to be a fortitude, strength of her faith that was not going to budge at all. Sadly, as the centuries went on, she kind of lost her reputation, and also because she was a woman, which of course the hierarchical men of the church fear, she lost some of, I think she was diminished somewhat. Not in my mind. In my mind, Mary Magdalene was Jesus' best friend on earth. I think she was the first disciple who was able to promote the church, the kingdom of God, is the way Jesus saw it. And I think she was one of those few people that had an absolutely personal relationship with Jesus that was unstoppable. And the fact that she was one of the few human beings in the world that was able to experience the resurrected Jesus.